Hello and welcome to Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and the Pipedrive marketplace. My name is Bignell. I'm sales director here at Evolve. Evolve helps small and scaling businesses get the most out of Pipedrive through implementation, consultancy, and training. Today, I have the great pleasure to be joined by Jason Smith, the sales engineer at CTM CallTrackingMetrics. CallTrackingMetrics is a platform that allows you to track and attribute every online and offline lead to exactly which campaign is driving it. Now, I'm super excited to be chatting with Jason today for a couple of reasons. One, because Jason is an expert in his field, speaking at such events like Google Analytics 4 or GA4. And as a sales professional, he's been working in enterprise and SaaS space for well over a decade. So I'm hoping I can extract just a little bit of that experience so I can share with you today. And because CTM is on the Pipedrive marketplace, ready for you to try out in the links in the description below. Jason, welcome. Please introduce yourself and CallTrackingMetrics to our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. My name's Jason Smith. My official title here is a sales engineer, but I do a lot of different things at CallTrackingMetrics. I've been with the company for over 7 years. When I started in 2015, we were a team of 10, and today we're around 75 employees. So we've had some really exciting growth over the years. CallTrackingMetrics was founded in 2011 by a husband and wife team, Todd and Lori Fisher. Very passionate about the people and the platform. Created a great environment for creativity and collaboration here. And we've maintained consistent organic growth for 10 years, privately owned and operated, no outside investors. So it's really an exciting place to create and innovate.
I love it. That's a really cool. I didn't know about the husband and wife starting. Actually, that's a really nice insight there. How do you think that's impacted the business that they've grown? Does that make them? I don't. Yeah. Obviously, you've been with them for 7 years now, and you've worked other places. Has it impacted the type of business that they're running?
Yeah, I think it definitely gives it a different sense of culture when the husband and wife co-founding team are kind of running things from the
Mm.
top. They're very protective about who they hire and passionate about the people that they bring in the door. Um, they always want to inspire.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm sure they've had some real lessons over the last couple of years. We're obviously going through COVID and things like this, right? So, and not just COVID, but scaling from 10 people when you were there to 75, right? So, what does that team now look like? So, has that gone into development teams? Has that gone into your sales and marketing teams? What's the kind of spread there?
Yeah, so we're always kind of trying to stay developer heavy, and I think that's what builds a great product is having those resources available. But we definitely have a very deep marketing team, and we've got a very large technical support team. Uh, we have sales and customer success as well, and then various pockets of leadership and things and HR,
Mm. I,
people and
I,
culture.
I would actually like to give a shout out to your marketing team. I haven't met them or haven't spoken to them just yet, but you guys do a lot of great content, whether it's the podcast and kind of the some of the other stuff that you guys get involved with. Is yeah, it's very cool and useful. Certainly, tracking just useful content. I saw something the other day about how to track your um, your business in a downturn or whatever it was. It was a very actionable piece of content that I thought was great. So kudos to the marketing team there.
Yeah, definitely shout out to them. There's a campaign going on this whole month around, how to make the most out of your dollar and stretch your budget with
Yeah,
tools
I
like
think
call
that was
tracking metrics.
yeah, it's very cool. So what is the reach of CTM? Like obviously US based. Where's the kind of current clients and markets covered?
Yeah, it's before we move on, you just one other thing you mentioned, kind of like the learning opportunities and in the pandemic and
Mm,
COVID and everything that's come out of that, and every business I think has learned, but we were actually in a really unique position because on the other side of this marketing attribution and the incoming data and tracking the inbound calls, one of the things that we've always kind of built on the other side of the platform is this phone system and agent experience and the ability to have agents log in from anywhere to be able to field these phone calls. So
Mm.
when COVID hit and everyone was sent home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve, CTM all of a sudden had a lot more people adopting those call center features, and we really helped a lot of businesses um, scramble and quickly get remote teams up and running.
Yeah, and I mean that was huge, right? So has that made you pivot and put more of a focus into the dialer? Like, where's that? What's that meant for the business there?
Well, so I give Todd and Lori all the credit in the world. Coming out of the last kind of recession in 2008, they realized that um, ad dollars, marketing budgets are going to come and go, but everybody's always going to want to use the phone and make phone
Hmm.
calls. So they really using that learning experience kind of built out and focused on the call center piece, where I think now in the marketplace we see a lot of competitors out there scrambling trying to catch up.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I would push back if you if you read too much LinkedIn, they'll tell you don't pick up the phone, which I think is crazy. um,
Yeah, yeah,
because yeah, obviously it depends on the type of business that you've got, but at the end of the day, it's people, and there's typically a salesperson at the end of that engagement, or whatever's happening online. The CTAs, you usually want them to have a demo or a conversation, so don't be afraid of the phone.
for
um,
sure.
so, what does a typical CTM customer look like? Are you going for the bums on seats? Like, what's the kind of number of users and kind of industries that you guys might target?
Yeah, so we're in about 80 different countries around the globe. We're always expanding into new markets and forging new carrier partnerships where the demand is to meet the demand in different markets. Um, I like to think that there's an application of our service for anyone that does any sort of business on the phone. But
Hmm.
marketing agencies have always been our sweet spot. Historically, we always go back to them because this tool allows them to prove their efforts to their clients. The client can't say, well, that was word of mouth that
Hmm.
led to all those extra phone calls last month. The agency has hard evidence that their online digital marketing efforts resulted in all of these offline calls. So it's there's a big glaring hole there if they're not doing some kind of call tracking and they're offering those kinds of digital marketing services. So uh, we always work well with those companies, but we're a HIPAA compliant solution, so we do a lot of business with healthcare companies, doctors' offices, addiction treatment facilities. We enter into business associate agreements, and all of the PHI or patient health information is protected here in CTM.
Very, very nice. From a agency standpoint, then, how would you work with that agency? Would you tell them, would they recommend you guys, and then you do build out the workflow and work with the client, or does the agency integrate CTM into their business, into their client's business? What's kind of CTM's role there? Do you act as an implementation partner as well? How does that work?
We try to work with agency partners and resellers in any way that they want to. So we have a partner ecosystem that has programs for both of those personas that you described. So some agencies just want to refer the customers to us. The customer manages their own account, but they allow the agency in it as users. We don't
Yeah,
charge anything extra for the users, so it's really easy if the agency has a lot of experience with CTM, knows exactly what data points that they need, they can come into the account, set it up for the client while the client retains ownership and
yeah,
owns the billing of that account. And then we also have a lot of white label options and multi-tenant arrangements where with the subscription fees on our higher plans, it gives you an unlimited number of sub accounts. So an agency or reseller can own that account. They can be our billing customer of record, but then they can create sub accounts or different tenants for their clients underneath that
Mm.
and give their clients their own access to call tracking metrics. The agency can put it on their own domain, so the customer is logging into calls.agencyabc.com, and then we have options to mark that stuff up with things like our integration to Stripe. Mark up all the calls by a certain percentage, or we work with a lot of lead sellers that are reselling call tracking metrics, where they just want to do, I'm doing marketing for roofing companies, and every roofing lead I'm going to build this client $50.
Yeah, no, understood. It's really cool. Again, it's just blending the online and offline world, right? So no longer does it have to be a silo. And at the end of the month, the MD that just spent £6,000 on printing the flyers, if it's offline, or £12,000 on the Google ads, you can then bring it all together. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yep, and then even more important nowadays, they're getting to where that's not enough, just blending and
Mm.
understanding the relationship there. But now we want to close the loop. We want to get that. We know that this expensive Google Ads click led to a phone call. We know exactly what keyword led to that phone call, but then call tracking metrics sending that activity into the CRM, and the CRM then knowing that, hey, that click, that campaign, that keyword eventually led to $1,000 sale, or it
Mm.
didn't lead to a sale, and having a source of truth. And we have an option to post that data back to call tracking metrics, and we can communicate that conversion back to Google Ads.
Oh, nice, all the way to, yeah. So I'm sure we'll touch upon the native Pipedrive integration um, in a short while, actually. So I'll come back to that, about how the two work. Cool. But as a sales engineer, how have you seen? Obviously, you've been with CTM for 7 years now. You're an AE before that, right? How have you seen just the role change, um, and your expectations of from an SDR standpoint up to how have you seen the role change over the last decade or so?
It's we expect a lot from our SDRs. They have to be a lot of general knowledge, and especially I feel like in this space that we're playing in, where they have to be both digital marketing experts and kind of IT phone system experts. Have to
Yeah.
have a good base of both to get people in the door, and that's certainly been amplified, with remote work and how commonplace
Mm.
that's become.
So how is it Todd and Laurie? How have they spearheaded that? Is that a constant training effort and sharing of kind of pain Bibles and things that have worked, haven't worked within the business? How does that resonate throughout, obviously, where you sit now as a sales engineer, which is, I guess, the sharp end of the sale, right? So you get called in to really answer those questions, solutionify it, either build the solution or show people how it could work, right? Where does that feedback come from, and where are lessons learned?
I think lessons learned all along the way. We learn lessons from the ones we don't get in the door, and we kick
Yeah.
ourselves. Oh, maybe there was a solution, or we could have got that to someone else in the right time and had an answer that had them go with us instead of the competitor. And there's great lessons from the wins as well. Hey, I did this. We got this client in the door. Here's what I said, and let's resonate that through the rest of the team. This is a great story. And I think that's it. A lot of it is being able to tell those stories, and people relate to the stories more than they do the technical features, and bludgeoning them
Mm.
with feature documentation and stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just had a phone call 20 minutes before we came on this podcast, um, with a chap I hadn't spoken to since May of this year. Uh, and he reached out after I sent a message to all closed lost opportunities that hadn't got back to me, just like an email that went out. He got back to me and said, can we speak? Phoned him up. He said, have we spoken before? And, kind of under went through that whole piece, and it's like, yes. But it's just a timing piece. It's like, great, I want to go ahead. We've got some massive training that we need to do. Let's kind of speak again before the new year, right? So that and until you, but that was a remarketing campaign from us to go to people that closed loss without hearing from them. But I had checked my responses to him. I was like, it was never a push to close. It was like insight led. It was always sharing this. Did you know? And then he comes back. It's just
telling the stories.
sometimes the timing isn't right. So um, you can't push to close on every single individual. So because you just alienate yourself. Anyway, so from a CTM point of view, what does the future look like for you guys, right? So you've had this organic growth, you've gone from 10 people to 75 plus. Is it more hiring? Is it kind of more partnerships, growing the ecosystem side? Where do you see the roadmap for the business?
Yeah, so always growing. Growth is always an initiative, and with that comes hiring. So we're always excited and eager when we can expand the team. Some other exciting things on the roadmap for us are integrations with Google My Business Chat. It is really
Ooh.
close. So a new call to action when on a mobile device, when someone clicks on a Google My Business listing, you can engage with that business through chat or Messenger, and that would come directly into the CTM activity log and be attributed, to that specific location's Google My Business page. So we're really excited about that option. We're flushing out more solutions around speech recognition and automating our existing speech recognition capabilities. What we have today is pretty basic and DIY, but what we're hearing people want is kind of pre-canned, telling them what's a good phone call, what's a bad phone call,
Mm.
and different variations based on verticals. So some of those packages are things that we're working on. Also, local presence in the EU is going to be really big for us. We've seen what's been happening with Google Analytics, and we're trying to serve our EU customer base and their data as secure as possible. So we decided it was time to make the investment and stand up all the parts needed to have a dedicated instance in that part of the world.
Nice, yeah. And just going back to your first point about the Google My Business on mobile, it's so important now that the amount of engagement on that as a business owner and as someone that uses Google for searching businesses, it's the first thing that you see. You should be having um, your phone numbers, clear CTAs there. It's such an important real estate, certainly from a search on mobile. So yeah, it's cool to see that you're looking to link that up. Very cool.
Yeah, I feel like people have been asking for more and more tracking of those Google My Business interactions over the
Mm.
last year, 18 months. It's becoming a really popular call to action and marketing tool.
Yeah, we get hundreds of people asking for directions. I don't know who's knocking on, but no one's knocked on the door yet. But they just want to know where we are. But from
And then
a
just on that part as well, on the future, I wanted to say, hopefully this year we get to spend more time innovating and creating. Over the last year and a half, we've spent a lot of time with regulating things like A to
mm,
P, text messaging, and stir shaken on the outbound dialing part, and adapting to new regulations that are being imposed is always less exciting than building new features and solving new problems.
yeah, but it's less exciting, but it's you've got to get the house in order before you start. Um, yeah, going out too much. I was going to use a very poor analogy there, but I won't. Um, but from a and I said I would get onto it, the integration with Pipedrive, right? So CTM and Pipedrive, yes, as a native integration, um, and we'll have a link in the description below because you've walked me through that, which is a nice kind of demonstration of how you can push data into Pipedrive um, within the native integration. But you did touch upon earlier about maybe using a middleware to kind of push data from Pipedrive back into CTM. Could you just kind of flesh out how the systems do integrate, what you can do natively, and what you can do kind of with middleware?
Yeah, for sure. So natively, definitely think of it as a one-way push. So CTM has all of these calls, text messages, chats, form entries, and with those activities, we have all of the session data. We've matched these activities to visitors on the website that have a Google Click ID. We know the last 50 pages they visited. Um, we have all of this information in CallTrackingMetrics, and then we have a workflow automation tool called Triggers. So when one of those activities meets a certain criteria, for example, it's a first-time caller with talk time over 2 minutes in that activity, for example, then we do a lookup to find a Pipedrive deal, and if we find a match, we'll log an activity, a call activity to that deal that we found, or we can create a brand new activity and then log a deal to it.
Nice, yeah, and I think that first point of looking up if it's already existing within your Pipedrive database is something that is super important because you want to, because it might be someone that you're currently working with. You might be able to identify problems early and or respond to them if they're getting back in touch after months and months and months. So that you've got that continuity of outreach there. No, that's very cool.
Yep,
And
and then so the other side of that, with the middleware, once you've got data in the Pipedrive or another database, the middleware in between, with every activity that we send, we're going to have a unique activity ID, and we have a REST API that has endpoints to update those activities. So what some companies do is when that CRM, the Google call, the expensive Google call comes in, we push that to the CRM, and then 2 weeks later, that CRM record finally turns into a deal, and we have a dollar amount. So the idea is you can post through that API and pass that dollar amount back to CallTrackingMetrics, back to that original Google Ads call, and through our integration, we can then pass that value of that new sale back to Google. So people are using that actual return on investment or return on ad spend and those hard dollar amounts to drive automated bidding in the ad platforms with incredible accuracy. They're not spending money on anything that's not actually returning value.
yeah, and I guess that kind of goes back to your, I know it's not where you focus, but that kind of real niche with the digital marketing agencies and that ROAS, like return on ad spend. If you can demonstrate that to your clients all the way back through, that's a pretty powerful thing. So, yes, very very cool. Is there anything else on the integration between the two that you'd like to touch on there?
Just the user mapping. So again, CallTrackingMetrics can either be the front end marketing attribution or kind of the tool that the sales team or call center agents are using. And if you're in that second use case where you've got sales members and call center agents directly in CTM, you have the ability to map those users directly to their Pipedrive users. So the new call that happens in CallTrackingMetrics can be properly assigned to the correct owner inside a Pipedrive.
Yeah, yeah, super super useful. Just because certainly from an inbound perspective, everyone wants to know if someone's calling you on the inbound. We want them to know if they're already in the system, who they are, who they're associated with. So yeah, very very useful. Jason, can you tell me a little bit more about and as I've got to kind of chat with you a bit more today, what's been this journey from AE at your last place to obviously, I think, was you the first AE at CTM? Is that right?
No, I was the second AE at
Okay.
CTM.
So what's that kind of journey been like within the company, and how have you gone from maybe an individual contributor to where you are now? What's the kind of that progression been like there for you?
It's always kind of been an aspiration to be more in this kind of role. In my previous roles as an AE, I was always selling very technical solutions, and in
Mm.
those sales teams, I was always kind of the technical sales guy that everyone would come to for answers to those kinds of questions and bring into those kinds of calls anyway. So it was a natural fit to transition into the AE role, and I've just been able to learn an incredible amount. So my background is more in telecom and telephony. So coming to CallTrackingMetrics, learning a lot about the software development and writing JavaScript and connecting APIs, as well as the whole digital marketing world and the Google sandbox that we play in.
So, how would you say you're typical salesperson at CTM, or anywhere you've been? Because I would see you as a rare special breed, right? Someone that can get into the weeds with the client that wants to know the details and can be the digital marketing consultant, right? So how did you fall into this role? Was it someone that said, "Bloody hell, Jason, you'll be great at this"? How did you end up being in sales? What was that? How did that come about?
So I just kind of was doing that role, voluntarily.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, my lights just went out. Sorry,
That's all
motion
right.
detector there. I had to move to get the light back on. So yeah, I was always just kind of naturally doing the sales engineer role while I was an AE, and the great culture here and great career pathing. Hey, where do you see yourself? And I said I see myself in more of the support role. Like, why should I focus on just my own pile of sticks over here when I can help everybody get the biggest pile of sticks possible?
Yeah, I like it. Um, Very cool. So I've got a couple of quick fire questions.
Sure.
They can be long form answers, but quick fire questions. Um, CTM, so call tracking metrics. What's your favorite use case that you've seen someone come up with?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I love the story of a company we helped. They were a trucking recruiting company, and they had, so they would get new job applications posted as a form into their CRM, and then it would go into a sales rep's to-do list, and then they would, call back call the recruit when they could. But the company at the same time with this process in place was facing 105% turnover on new truck drivers. So they were at a crisis. They needed to hire more. They couldn't miss any hiring opportunities. So they came to us kind of asking for like a speed to lead solution. And
Mm,
what we did is we helped them integrate their driver application tool with our lead forms and the REST API that you get with our lead forms. And with that form coming into CallTrackingMetrics, one of the things that we can do is initiate a phone call right away.
mm,
So what we did in implementing this, as soon as that new driver applicant met a certain screening criteria, then the phone would ring to the sales team. We'd ring all the sales agents right away. They hear a message, hey, you've got a new recruit that's passed the screening. Press one if you can talk now. So we really sped up the time that it took for them to get in front of these people, and they were getting leads from all of these recruiting services out there. And as soon as someone filled out these applications, their phone would ring off the hook and they'd get tons
mm.
of emails. So if you're even a few seconds behind on getting in touch with this person, your chance of recruiting them, converting them, whatever the application, drops significantly. So we were able to really help them speed up and improve their recruiting percentage and uh, put butts in seats that we need to keep those supply chains open.
You mentioned earlier about stories being a better way to tell versus just giving the numbers, right? And I think that's a brilliant example of um, yeah, that's a great use case, and it's just the kind of what tech can bring to a business. Like we always like to say that technology shouldn't be the where you start your conversation. If you ask for the business problem that you're facing, which is what it sounds like you guys did, then if you overlay the right tech solution, you can kind of create this synchronous event, right? So they filled in this form. Let's get them on the phone as quickly as possible. How do you do that? Well, with a system like that. Yeah, that's a really great use case. Um, what would you say top tips for getting started using CTM? So someone that hasn't used a system before, And then for those that are looking to excel or who have been using it and want to kind of really expand and excel their use case.
Yeah, so we've got a really low barrier to entry to start using call tracking metrics, more so than some of the other solutions out there. So we waive our subscription fee for the first 30 days. So to get your hands on the platform, you're really just paying for whatever numbers and minutes that you use to buy numbers, make test calls, see the service in action, and it's a self-service software platform. We have a great knowledge base. We have a great support team here to help you through that. But as a brand new user, I would always recommend investing in our professional services team as well. So we have this service, whether you're new or you're an existing customer that has a project, a feature that you'd like to implement. This professional services team, we would carve out a block of paid hours, and then you have a dedicated project manager who knows your problem, knows what the solution is that you're both working towards, and you can schedule time on their calendar along the way to get that project done. Whether you want to just delegate it to them and have them set it up
Mm.
and let you know when it's ready to test, or if you want them to drag you along or drag your team along and show you how and why they're connecting the parts of the platform that they are to achieve your goal.
Yeah, love it. And for the people that have been on CTM for some time, and maybe they've got a use case but they know it can do more, right? So what would be that typical give this a go? Don't be scared to building these workflows. Or what would you say the tip there would be?
Yeah, so for our existing customers, we have great coverage from our commercial teams. So whether they're in their first 6 months or a year or they've been with us since 2011, um, they have some coverage in customer success or sales. So reach out to that rep and just schedule some time, talk through the use case, however you want to use it. As you've kind of hit on, we're very solutions oriented, so solution selling. So we'll talk through, tell you how you might be able to do that. And then from there, you can weigh, is this something that I want to tackle on my own, knowing that there's going to be a little bit of trial and error in build, or do I
Mm.
want to invest in CTM professional services, get a block of time with a project manager, and just have them flush it out with me.
Yes, see what can be done, right? It's always about understanding what can be done, what can't be done, and start with the problem at the heart of it before you overlay any tech. Yeah, I would agree
Yeah,
with that.
and a project that those professional services teams take on a lot is training and like new admin training, right? An old admin leaves an account, a new admin comes in. That's not an uncommon project where we'll assign a block of hours to really give that admin a crash course in a short amount of time and show them everything that they have at their disposal, as well as get their new ideas. Everyone sees things a little bit differently, so they might have
Mm.
different ideas on how to use these things or uncover some stones that the old admin didn't see.
Yeah, and that's a really good point in terms of there isn't one way to do anything, right? So there's always dependencies. Teams might have changed. Capabilities internally may have changed. So if the current customer they had a real technical person internally, that person then moves on, and they were managing. That might be a call to action for to use the professional services and just lean in on them for a while and kind of train the trainer again, kind of learn how to use your own system again if someone's moved away. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Jason, is there anything in particular you'd like to cover that we felt we haven't touched upon before we sign off?
No, this has been great. Thank you for having me.
That's quite right. So it's been super fun to kind of um, yes, spend this time with you, get to understand the platform a little bit deeper. And again, thanks to all the listeners. Most of our listeners, Jason, are on Pipedrive or considering the switch. So hopefully they found it useful as well. And thank you for listening to Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and the Pipedrive marketplace. I've been Bruce Bignell. Thank you very much.